just shoot me in the head, cause you know I'd be better off dead if there's really no place in America for a celebrity in the first rank.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Andrew
Jackson! Yeah!
That's right, motherfuckers. Jackson's back.
1, 2, 3, John F. tried to be an American Idol. Jefferson tried to be a rock star. Madison tried to make the presidency vital. And James Monroe was a douchebag. The story always ends the same. It's hard to handle all it.
Pleasure to introduce Oskar Eustis and Michael Friedman. And what do you think the state of American theater is? How are things going?
I think there's two strongly conflicting tendencies. Because on the one hand, I think the American theater is healthier than it has ever been. There is a more diverse and talented group of people who are working in American theater than at any point in American theater history. And I mean this, it's astonishing collection of writers, composers, actors, directors, amazing people. The professional theater is more decentralized than it has ever been in America. The theater is scattered all over the country, professional and amateur theaters, but really high quality, interesting, competent organizations, and some of those organizations are deeply rooted in their communities in ways that are very, very exciting. So that's all the good news. The bad news is that most of those institutions are failing to fulfill their mission successfully, and there is a huge conservative backlash that is happening that is endangering the health and vitality of the American theater. And I would name this in sort of two ways. And the first is that the ideals of the nonprofit theater are being eroded from both ends. And a lot of this has been with the removal not only of government subsidy, and government subsidy has declined dramatically in the last 30 years for the nonprofit theater, but also the great national foundations, Ford, Rockefeller, Mellon, who gave, particularly Ford, enormous amounts of support to the American nonprofit theater movement, have basically now all had to redirect their energies to the social safety net and to basic social services, and so none of them are major players in the theater in the way that they were in the 1960s and 70s and even early into the 80s. And in response to that, the theaters have had to become more entrepreneurial. Now that sounds great, that the theater should become leaner and meaner and more entrepreneurial. It's right? That's what we're all told we're supposed to do. Well, we all got told we were supposed to do that, and we all did that. And what that means is you have the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, the flagship of the American regional theater movement, the proudest representative of what the regional theater movement was supposed to stand for, that is now producing Charlie's Aunt and the Sunshine Boys and Arsenic and Old Lace in the same season. And it's because the shift to needing to make earned revenue, to needing to earn at the box office, the mind sport, has produced an incredibly powerful commercial pull on the theaters that many of them are being unable to resist. And so I don't mean to pick on the poor Guthrie, which I love, and which was the theater I grew up with, but which nonetheless is exemplary for, I think, one whole wave of increasing conservatism and homogenization. When these theaters were founded, they were supposed to feel like they were of their communities. They were supposed to feel like they couldn't happen anywhere else, and that is sadly not the case in many theaters now. But the second thing that's also equally, I told you it was a Jeremiah, equally troubling to me, is that since the mid-1960s and the establishment of the National Endowment for the Arts, there is a professional nonprofit theater movement that's sprung up around this country that now employs literally thousands, and I actually bet tens of thousands, of administrators, developers, development officers, marketing folks, production folks, sales folks, you name them, such so that there are 10,000 of us who are able to make some kind of middle-class living off the nonprofit theaters, often not an upper middle-class living, never an upper middle-class living, that's okay, a middle-class living. Who's missing from that list are the artists. These theaters have formed, and nobody is paying living wages to actors, directors, writers, composers, designers.
And lately, not even to the artisans, which was one
not
of the
even to exactly the props.
That's the real reason tragic.
And so you have this this regional theater movement, this non-market theater movement, that is simultaneously becoming more commercial in its relationship to its audience, trying to get the bucks out of the audience to support themselves, and becoming also less egalitarian or financially feasible for its artists. So it's actually the sort of worst of both worlds that's happening. And if we don't, in some really powerful way, try to counteract that trend, I envision it's going to be a very tough next generation or two for the American theater.
I love a good Jeremiah, but if I may counter, and I actually have to, having been at the Guthrie, literally the week they made most of their artisans go to part-time, which was, and the Guthrie, I think we have to use the Guthrie because it was the proudest theater and because its artisans were famously the greatest. But to bring a positive spin, just to say, I actually think in this crazy technological nightmare world we live in, the edifices might be collapsing a little bit, but what's not collapsing is the desire of people to come see things that are live. Live touring music has never been more vibrant at the moment than it is right now. People want to go to plays. People in colleges are like writing musicals, which when I was in college in the 90s, none of us were writing musicals. We were writing, you know, we wanted to go write for The Simpsons. That is a new thing. Cool kids wanting to be involved in theater is a new thing. There is a sudden desire to be part of a thing that is live, which is an experience that you can't get. I actually feel like we're watching a crisis right now in television and in film, which is not, which while there are crises in the finances of theater, is not a crisis in theater if you include college productions, if you include community theater productions, if you include high school productions, if you include, there is a vibrancy to theater as something that happens in a room that people come to see.
I'm wearing some tight jeans. And tonight we're delving into some serious shit. I'm Andrew Jackson. I'm your president. Let's go.
I've seen this show in reviews the same morning called extraordinarily cynical and incredibly naive. I think it's, it's both. And so I think our intention and our luck with really, again, with Andrew Jackson was to put our trust in the moment that Jackson represents, which is probably the most cynical, innocent moment in American history. It was amazing to be able to say to each other, you know, this is the show that when we shook hands 47 minutes into meeting and had this stupid idea, this is the show we meant to run entirely. And I don't think, I think you get to have that like once or twice.
And I think also brought a kind of fresh wind to the American musical that was really, I think we'll be feeling the reverberations from that wind for a long time to come.
I know many of the students want to know this. You saw the show last night. What'd you think?
I love the catwalk, actually. I love the tables. I love the way the show began. We were talking about that.
Why don't you guys go up and I'll finish the speech and just let you finish it. What's going on? Hey, guys, come on. Executive director of theater. Come on. I wanted to tell them to enjoy the show.